Welcome back to On the Horizon podcast, hosted by Jessie Sage and Melrose Michaels. First, thank you so much for becoming a premium subscriber and supporting our podcast. This is getting you extra exclusive, unheard, and unseen footage from each interview that we have on the horizon. So first, let's dive in with Princess Berpl.
How do you fit like your, I know your like cosplay into this? Do you feel like your cosplay is like really interconnected with your fetish work, or do you feel like it's a different thing that you do?
No, absolutely. Absolutely it is. And I most of my cosplay content is also fetishy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will get excited about certain fetishes because of what happens in these animes or these video games. Mm-hmm. And like, they connect the dots and I'm there with them. Like, let's go.
What's your favorite character right now to play? Or some of your favorite ones?
Some of my favorite ones, it's hard to say this because whenever I work on a project, that character is my favorite one. Okay. So I just finished up doing like Resident Evil, and I loved being Lady Dimitrescu. Oh my God, I probably messed that up. It's been a while. And she's this 8-foot tall vampire lady who's like a total fucking MILF. And like, and she speaks very elegantly and she's very powerful and she like is punishing. And I'm like, hell yeah.
You do like voice training and everything though. Like you really like study the characters.
I do. I just watch stuff and I just repeat it, and it might not be perfect and some stuff I can't do very well, but I try my best and it's fun. So
yeah,
I love like changing my voice and trying to like emulate things. It's very fun for me.
It's so interesting because we just had an interview for the podcast for a different episode with somebody else who said the exact opposite thing, where he was like, I'm not an actor. I am just myself. Like, and that's kind of how I approach things too. Like, you remember last Halloween, it was the first time I ever wore a Halloween costume ever. And Berpl had to like walk me through it. She's like, it's not that hard. I promise you. You can be, who was I? Daphne? No. Yeah. Was I Daphne? Okay. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask her because I don't know. She's like, you can be Daphne. Just put a wig on, a purple outfit. It'll be fine. But it's so interesting. Like, I love talking to you because you have like the exact like opposite. Like, you think the fun part of it is like all of the production of it and the fantasy. And for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. That like is a roadblock for me. And
I have always wanted to act, but I have the worst stage fright in the universe. Like, it's terrifying to me to like act like in front of a crowd or something like that. But being able to do it just in front of a camera, like, it's so much fun. And I get to do the thing that like I've always wanted to do, but haven't because of limitations, you know? And it's like, I can just do it. And it's great.
Yeah. That's really cool.
That's really cool that you get this like creative outlet and you get to do it for a job.
Yeah. But I understand like liking like the very real aspect of it. And I do that in certain ways.
Yeah. And, I mean, there's always like a piece of yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's fun too. Yeah. In certain ways. And I think I'm just so kind of open-minded in this world. Like, I could do fucking anything. I feel like a chameleon, honestly. Like, I can put on a wig and look like a totally different person, and you wouldn't even recognize me. Like, it's fun.
I totally admire that about you. I admire like the work that goes into your clips, and
it's a lot of work.
Your like
to do
character
all that stuff.
Development and your costumes. And I think that's so cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you appreciate it.
Yeah. I couldn't do it, but that's why I have friends who do it. I don't do.
Can you define like the laying eggs thing? Because I know there's going to be listeners that don't understand that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So they sell like if you've ever heard of like Kegel balls, they sell kind of like Kegel balls that aren't attached to any strings or anything like that. And they're shaped like eggs. And sometimes they have funny like grooves to them. And like, yeah, and you just put them inside of you, and you can use the ovipositor. Personally, I haven't found that very enjoyable because it kind of creates like this vacuum that like shoots a cannon into you. And it's like, holy shit, that was my cervix. So I would be careful if it's something that you want to explore.
That's great.
But yeah, and then you just put them inside of you however way you enjoy, and you squeeze them out.
Okay. So it's like this act. Okay.
I want to try this. I've never done this.
I've never done this either.
Yeah, you guys are just like, oh, could you tell me like what that is for listeners that might not know? Not me. Not me.
It means me. This is very well established. And I am the listener listening cluelessly. But no, that gives a lot of context because that's very similar to like a Kegel exercise and understanding the muscles that go into all of these things. So that makes sense.
And I think like squirting is a thing that like you have to kind of learn how to do. And then once you know how to do it, like you can make yourself do it.
I've never done it. I have no idea how to do this.
Oh,
no, it is highly requested and highly disappointed amongst my fan base.
No, I think like squirting is usually more enjoyable than orgasms. And they're not the same thing.
Well, now I feel like I've been robbed.
Yeah. I think you can squirt without having an orgasm.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think for some, like, you have to enjoy the sensation of kind of peeing.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of have that sensation. And I think for some people, it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
And like making a mess is kind of like, I don't know, too much for some people, which I understand.
Yeah, I can get that, but I get that. But no, I think like a lot of times it's like somehow like separate than an orgasm. It's like a different feeling, but it's the same sort of like release as an orgasm.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's more physical sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of like orgasm can be like very in your head and like sensations.
Yeah. So what do you think it's the it must be the like pushing the egg out that like creates that.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's like a muscle. I don't know it medically or anything. I can just feel it in my body.
Yeah.
And like you can relax it so much that it just happens.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like the relaxation, like the total relaxation of a muscle. And I think especially if you have like pelvic floor like tension, like that can feel really amazing. Like, whoa, finally. It's like a massage, I guess.
Yeah, maybe that's why I like it. I don't know.
That's probably why it's never happened for me. I'm so tense and unrelaxed.
Oh, no.
Like, that's gotta be it. It's all adding up. The math checks out. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, but it is like a really highly requested thing.
Oh, yeah. Constantly. Yeah. I've lost fans over that.
What?
They're really? Like, if you won't do this, I'm like, I physically don't know how to perform that act.
No.
Like, I don't know what to tell you. I am not your girl. Like, I can recommend you to some friends. I see them do it all the time. Here's their name. But no.
Yeah. Although I've had people who are like, can I do a Skype show and will you squirt? And then they're like, a 5-minute shot. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to do this in 5 minutes. There has to be like a whole like thing. Like you want me to just like open the thing, say hi, and then squirt? Like, that's not how that works.
The custom videos where they like do cartwheels, a backflip, ride a dig, clap your hands, rub your belly, and it's only gonna be a minute. I only have $50. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, where do you live?
I think by far the worst ones are like, I want to see your butthole, your vagina, your feet, your face, your boobs all at the same time. And you're like, yeah. And like, I can do that, but you're going to have to pay for like me to have some sort of like realignment. Cause like, I'm just like this for like a week after my neck won't move.
God, that's so true.
I can't even do that. Mm-hmm. I can't even do the thing where I'm like, sometimes I'm scrolling through Twitter and I think it's like, I must have short arms or a big butt or something, or both. I don't know. Because like I see all these people on Twitter and they're like, oh, I know what they're doing. It's like looking at you but their like legs are spread open, but then their arms are around their legs and they're like fingering themselves. And I'm like,
oh my God.
And I'm like, what in the world? Like, how are you doing that? Like no.
Yeah.
I need some yoga classes before that's going to be accomplished.
Sex work yoga. There should be a sex work yoga. Someone out there.
I agree.
Do that. Next, let's take a look behind the scenes of our interview with Cactus Kutie.
I was telling Mel that I have a client who we're sitting and we're chatting, and he's like, so what's with the tattoos? And I was like, what do you mean?
What's with it?
Yeah. Like he was like, what happens to you that you get tattoos? You know,
oh
because he's like, I mean, not in like a judgy way, like a generally like,
oh, like concern. Like,
no, like you're some like magical creature who lives outside of the social norms that I like. He's like a conservative
yes,
dude,
yeah.
You know? And
it's definitely outside the social norm.
Yeah, it's like outside the social norms. Like the women in his world aren't covered in tattoos, but like he finds it kind of intriguing. But he's like, "How'd you do that?" And I was like, I don't know. I went into a tattoo shop and they did it.
Decisions were made. Here we are.
Like, it's so normal to me that like the way he was like, what's with the tattoos? I was like, I don't even know how to answer that question.
I love that.
Yeah, but it was kind of cute because there's something for a lot of people. Like, I feel like whatever we are, if we're like, I even feel that way about like fatness or being like plus size too, because a lot of times like there's something about like seeking out somebody who like may have something that's outside of your social norms or who like is occupying something that you've been taught that you're not supposed to like, you know, and that they're like, how did you do that? And I was like, what do you mean? I don't know. Like my clothes don't fit into size 6, so I just don't wear them. You know? How did that happen? I don't know.
Our fans are definitely inquisitive. I feel like they want to understand other people, like going back to that, wanting to watch people, wanting to see people be people. Cause it's like, you know, I feel like the media that we're also given doesn't give us a good representation of different types of people. And that's the wonderful world of sex work, I think, is because now we get to really show like there's lots of different types of beauty and sexual and sensual and kinky things out there from people that aren't blonde, big boobs, you know, that kind of thing, which nothing against them, but like that became the norm and like this outside of the norm thing. So it's kind of fun being like the girl with tattoos and stuff. I'm sure you understand. It's like a little bit of a difference, but that's how I've also been able to market myself. You find hairy groups, you find people who are into this. And then, I'm now on a website, Hairy Creator Collective, that one hairy person put together, and they made a website and put us all on there, and it's like links to our OnlyFans and stuff. Like, it's really cute. But it's like the hairy community is just like one of the most beautiful communities I've ever been a part of. They're so nice and wonderful. And this job has definitely led me not only to loving myself, loving my body, and like getting to explore things and also work from home and, you know, make my own schedule and work with my disability and my body. But it's also gotten me to really meet some wonderful, wonderful people like you two. Like I've been flipping out for months to do this.
Oh, you're so sweet.
But there's some wonderful people in the sex work community. And I think that's something that you can't really find out. I mean, you can, sure. But like for people like me, it just feels like I fit in here. So
I feel that. Yeah, definitely. I really feel that. Like that this is kind of the sex work community is this like band of misfits.
Yeah.
Who are just like living their lives and have just like given up on respectability.
But there's so much power in that. Like I find whenever I lean into something that I think I'm gonna not like catch heat for or be canceled for, but like that's outside the norm, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna like put my feet on the ground here and like claim it, and like there's always good that comes from that. Like either people relate to you or people almost like admire you, because a lot of just having confidence in something you're not supposed to be confident about, like that's something we're taught from a long time, like from day one, not to do,
Right.
But I think
We're
confidence
told
is
to hide
the
that.
sexiest of all of it,
Yeah, it's like that vulnerability is also sexy. It's and I think that's also why sex work is so vulnerable, and that's why people come to us, because either it's hard to either ask your partner for something, or it's hard to figure out what you like. So talking to somebody that you don't know but can also help figure stuff out with you, or at least create something that you can
somebody
explore.
Who's already like made themselves like vulnerable, who like I don't know,
creates a safe space.
It does.
And
I mean, that's like, there's also like a stigma that goes there, like, well, you are nobody to judge, but like that could be also really like spun in a positive way, because I don't judge. I mean, the fact of the matter is that like I don't.
Yeah. The only thing I judge is when people don't pay for content or want it for free. That's the only time I judge. Other than that, like every person who walks into my OnlyFans or whatever, every person who, comes in to contact me, like if they have a weird request, I'm not going to be like, ew, no, I don't do that. I'm going to be like, I don't really do that. Here's somebody who I know does, or I'm sorry, I don't know that. But like, I really hope you find somebody who does. Not shaming people for what they like, or, some people don't like what I do. I'm not going to shame somebody else for what they do either, or what they find arousing or pleasing.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm really like not good at like degradation, like that sort of like, I'm very sweet. And the other day, like one of my clients, I mean, I can be like dominant, but not like mean dominant, And so it was funny the other day, one of my clients was like, well, can you say like really nasty, raunchy things? And I was like, no, I can't. Like, I was like, and which is funny because I was like a phone sex operator for so many years, but you can be a phone sex operator in a lot of ways. You can also be really nice. And so I was like, no, I just like, you don't want that from me. It will feel so forced and weird. And then I was like, just do the nice things with me and do the raunchy things with somebody else.
Yeah.
Like that's problem solved.
I love that. Yeah, it's like something that you want to give them the best experience that you know how, and you're not going to give them an experience that doesn't feel right. Yeah.
Right. He doesn't want that from me. I'm going to be like, you're a
bully.
You're a gross boy. What I try to do on my page is, I'll have random people ask me for degradation or something like that, or I get a lot of like genital ratings requests, and I tell people like they're going to be uplifting. Like you're going to feel good about yourself. You're not coming into my page to feel sad. You're coming to my pages to feel good about yourself. So all of my genital ratings, my most popular one is like a $25 video rating where I'm just like a minute topless, just like talking about it. I'm like, oh my God, it looks so good. Like just trying to make them feel, like all genitals are beautiful. And nobody, if you want to hear that and you want to hear that it's, that's not me. That's not.
Yeah. If you want to hear that it's pathetic, like you go to a different kind of dom.
Yeah,
exactly. You're going to feel happy when you come to my page.
Last but not least, let's listen to the exclusive from our chat with Dr. Celeste Pietrusza.
What you brought up reminded me of like when you said that a lot of this comes from people in like monogamous, long-term, like heterosexual vanilla relationships. One of my experiences, particularly I have to say, a lot of it came from phone sex, because phone sex is a bit like kinkier than other forms of sex work that I've done. And a lot of that, I think, is about the fact that, if you're doing phone sex, you don't have to be held to the laws of gravity, the laws of physics. You don't actually have to do the things that you're saying. So it's much more like imaginative. And so you can get into things that you wouldn't do or wouldn't necessarily be safe in person. And so I think that what I saw is a lot of people who said, nobody knows that I have this desire. I've never asked my wife. And for a long time I was like, why don't you just tell her? Maybe she will be into it. And it was it either went two ways, actually. I mean, many ways, but I can think of two ways off the top of my head. I'm scared that she'll think of me differently, and I don't want her rejection. Or I know that she loves me and will say yes to anything I want, but I don't think she'll want it. And I don't want to put her in that position.
Like to please you without her, needs being met. Yeah. I can see that.
And I think that those are both like interesting responses. One is about their own shame. Another one is about putting pressure on somebody who they know will say yes to please them. And I never really know like how to feel about that. I mean, I've been doing this for so long that like at this point I don't feel like that much about it. I'm just like, okay, well, I can do this with you. But for a long time I was like, should I encourage people to try to fulfill this in their own life? Or should I just like, should I feel bad that they can't have the things that they want? Or should I just like
let it lie?
I don't know. Yeah. And I'm curious, like I eventually came to the position of like, I can't be in their life. I don't know them. I am not a therapist. I don't know what's good for them. I'm just going to play with them and then they can go about their business.
That's what happens with like, I have the content creator background as well in that regard, but like on OnlyFans and stuff, that's kind of a lot of the DMs I get too. It's like, I want to experience this. I don't know how to talk about, can you give me advice? I'm like, that is not something I'm qualified to do.
Yeah. So what are your feelings about that? And what do you see in your practice that may be like similar or different than what we experience?
I believe that question is what people bring into. I mean, there are many things that I believe most of us imagine sexually and otherwise that we wouldn't want in embodied life too. And so my initial training was psychoanalytic training, which really foregrounds this aspect of fantasy too. And how is fantasy created and how do we create that with others? And so I really appreciate you sharing about phone sex and content creation, which are places where there can be this playground in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have body parts and bodies that you
don't have.
or don't exist even like outside of this realm too. And how wonderful. I mean, I think that that's what makes us uniquely human too, as well. I mean, if we think about how this appears, I mean, can see these sorts of images that relate to kinks or fetishes and all kinds of art, cinema too as well. I mean, would we have ever had cinema without a kind of initial voyeurism and desire to watch and record too? I'm not sure. I mean, all of these things involve a kind of pleasure of the senses. And so that sense of, I mean, a kink or fetish may be a very specific form of that repeats itself in various ways. And yet I believe that the fantasy elements and imagination elements can be just as important because there can be this pressure. Okay, if you think something, you have to do it. You have to make it real, right? My perspective is that fantasy and this kind of play too, even if it's not necessarily enacted in what we would call "quote unquote" in real life, is just as real. It's a psychic reality you can bring forth even in conversation, dirty talk with other people.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the other things that I've experienced like in my work and is a lot of my clients saying, especially ones that have like very specific fantasies. So for example, I do a lot of mommy doming. This is probably the place that I see this the most. When I do mommy doming, I have clients say to me, they get into it on this like very deep and almost like primitive level. Like they really like it. It connects to them in like this really intense way. But then they feel like, wait, I'm not supposed to like it to the extent that I do. And then they try to come up with an explanation as to like, oh, well, I think I like you to play the mommy role and be like a accepting mommy or a punishing mommy or whatever it is that is like part of their fantasy. Because this happened, or because this happened, or because I have this type of relationship with, and this is so specific, like with my mom, but like, I wonder, but I see this in other places too, and with spanking or with like, whatever it is that they're pegging or wearing lingerie or whatever it is that they're coming with. And I'm wondering what you think about this, like desire to explain, because sometimes I'm thinking, you could just like something. Like there doesn't have to be a justification. Why. Yeah. I mean, maybe there is, or maybe we invent these, and the fact that we invent them is also interesting. And I'm curious what you think
almost
about
like
that.
A defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I believe we're meaning, making, and interpreting creatures, humans, and that, I mean, I welcome interpretations in my practice, and also say like that could be one amongst many too. And that like what it is that is liked and enjoyed, I believe the specificity and the uniqueness of that is more of interest too. What can you do with this too? I mean, I think there's this desire to go backwards, and a lot of that is in psychology and psychological theory. And yet sometimes the question that's not asked, and yet I believe does appear and happen in kink spaces and kink communities too, is what can we do with this that's really cool? Like, let's see if we can make something new from it. And in what your experiences with mommy doming, I mean, that sexuality does touch upon tender forms of attachment and experiences remembered, misremembered, not remembered too. Yeah. And I think that's often left out of the discourse about kinks, fetishes, and BDSM is the aftercare parts or the caring parts of it too, because there can be we were talking about the visual, this draw into the visual aspects of it that look a particular way. And then there's this emotional part of it that's so pre-verbal and often wordless, and yet remains the sentimentality of kink and fetish.
I've had it told to me that like partaking in kink was more of an emotional experience than the average day-to-day vanilla sex. Do you think that there's any truth to that? Just because it's got more going on, I guess, I don't know that it does, I guess. Like when you're engaging in vanilla sex, it's like kind of the way I would, I guess, interpret this as it's routine and it's safe and it's acceptable and it's, the norm. And then when you have kink, you have these other avenues that you're exploring or you're diving into or I guess fantasizing about. And I feel like the person who explained this to me was saying that there's more room to be emotional or to feel connection if I am exploring these other avenues than with vanilla sex.
I think vanilla sex can be so intense sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's my experience too. But
and there you touched upon that it really depends on the person and maybe the uniqueness of our fantasies too, as well. I mean, that I do believe that maybe again all sex involves a sense of risk too. Even if we have minimal risks and stuff. I mean, I appreciate that the kink community changed the acronyms from safe, sane, consensual to risk-aware consensual kink, in the sense of what does it mean to push it a limit and really explore those outer edges too. Yeah. And what people define as kink can run the gamut. I was really surprised in doing my research, and I'd have to look back at the numbers. I came across a really large scale study from multiple countries in which a large percentage, more than I would have imagined, believed that anal sex in and of itself was a kink, right? And I said, well, many of us call that sex.
I know, that's what I was going to say. That doesn't feel kinky to me. That feels like sex.
Yeah.
And so who it is and how it's coded and in the context really matters.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this bonus footage from this episode of On the Horizon, and we look forward to having you tune in next time.